to the state of where we go beyond the Department of Labor job numbers and explore issues at the forefront of workforce development. I'm Amanda Cage, CEO of the National Fund for Workforce Solutions. Thank you to everyone joining us today. Today, I will be in conversation with Kermit Kaleba, the Strategy Director of Employment Aligned Credential Programs for Lumina Foundation. Hello, Kermit.
Let me unmute myself. Hello, Amanda.
Kermit, can you tell us a little bit about your work at the Lumina Foundation?
Sure, happy to. So if you're not familiar with Lumina Foundation, we are the nation's largest private foundation focused exclusively on post-high school education and training. And if you have heard of us, you're probably one of the things we're best known for is our attainment goal. So we're working as a foundation to achieve a world in which 60% of US adults between the ages of 25 and 64 have some form of post-high school degree or high quality credential by the year 2025. We're particularly focused on, as we're looking at trying to move to that attainment goal, trying to address inequities in educational attainment for Black, Hispanic, Latinx, and Indigenous learners. We know that based on our recent report, Stronger Nation, which looks at overall educational attainment in this country, about 48% of white workers, white adults have a post-secondary degree, but only about a third of Black workers and about a quarter of Hispanic Latino workers have an associate's degree or higher. And so as we're shooting to reach this 60% goal, we know that we aren't going to reach that goal if we don't do a better job of creating opportunities for learners of color and dismantling structural barriers that those workers and learners have faced. We also want to make sure that we're making sure that all learners have access to the benefits that come from a post-secondary degree or credential. So all of our work is really focused on expanding opportunity and particularly focusing on addressing those inequities. My job in particular is focusing on the role of community colleges in reaching that goal. We know that community colleges play an important role in helping not just learners get to the first couple of years of a four-year degree for when we talk about transfer students, individuals who start at a community college but then transfer to a four-year degree institution. They also serve as an important partner in helping prepare workers for jobs that don't require a four-year degree in a range of different industries, from manufacturing to IT to healthcare. So my job is working with community colleges, employers, and other community partners to support projects that expand opportunities for workers of color to get those credentials and move into well-paying employment.
So Lumina Foundation is so well known for its efforts in educational attainment and working in higher education. Why the interest in skills-based hiring? And can you define that for people who may not be familiar with that term?
Sure. I'll give you the definition that I think of. So skills-based hiring means focusing on what you can do rather than the particular degree that you have. And what do I mean by that? So we know historically that a lot of times employers have set as a requirement, you have to have a bachelor's degree or higher in order to qualify for a job. I think one of the things we know is that employers have historically inflated degree requirements for jobs. They've asked for a bachelor's degree or higher, even though you don't really need it to do the job that you're being asked to do. That people could do those jobs with specialized training, less training than a bachelor's degree. I think we've seen, we mentioned this, you and I just did an op-ed in The Hill about skills-based hiring. We've seen in recent years, there's been sort of a correction where employers are now starting to say, do we really need a bachelor's degree or higher in order for somebody to be able to do this job? Or are the skills and competencies that are necessary to do this job available from workers who may not have a bachelor's degree but do have the right specialized training and work experience? And so skills-based hiring is about right-sizing the educational requirements for entry into a job. And we're interested in it because we believe this, again, going back to those numbers I cited earlier, we know that if you set an expectation that you have to have a degree in order to be able to qualify for a job, that you're automatically excluding a larger number of learners of color by definition, and so degree requirements can be seen as perpetuating structural inequities against Black, Hispanic, and Indigenous learners. Not because they can't do the job, but because they don't. You have a set of arbitrary degree requirements that you're expecting.
Yeah, I think we've been part of a number of efforts to talk about lifting that degree requirement because its discriminatory practices. But we know that that's a start, but it's not the only thing we can do. What else do you think that needs to be done in this area?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think there's it's a little bit of there's been a lot of really good advocacy from stakeholders around the country about recognizing the discriminatory impact of arbitrary degree requirements. Right. But as we note in the op-ed, just lifting those degree requirements doesn't automatically mean that you're suddenly going to have a flood of folks who are ready and who to do those jobs, right? If you're doing construction, if you're doing healthcare, if you're doing IT, you recognize that there is specialized training that is necessary in order to be successful in those jobs. And so what we point out in the op-ed is that doing skills-based hiring, doing it well, doing it with an eye towards equity means more than just lifting the degree requirements. It means employers need to reach out to education and training providers, whether that's community colleges or labor unions or community-based organizations, and really engage with them in thinking about what are the requirements for doing this job, and what are the training pathways, what are the education and training pathways that are necessary in order to help somebody be successful on day one when they show up. It means thinking intentionally about the communities and where you've been engaging talent in the past. If you're in an industry where workers of color are not particularly well represented, that means thinking about how are you being represented? How are you showing up in those communities? How are you thinking about recruitment and outreach to make sure that people see themselves in the jobs that you're offering? How do they know that they are going to be welcome if they get the education and training that's necessary? So that's a big part of it. Is employers really need to be thinking intentionally about what they can be doing to strengthen those pipelines and pathways. I would say it's a particular challenge for small and medium-sized businesses where they often don't have the capacity to do some of the deep work around evaluating job requirements and communicating that well with education and training providers. So it's important for small and medium-sized businesses to partner with other entities around how do they build those skill requirements. In fact, that's something I think National Fund does such a great job of is building collaboratives with small and medium-sized businesses to develop skill, to make sure that you're developing pathways that create equitable opportunities.
Yeah, thank you for that plug, Kermit. We know that this is such a challenge in bringing employers together, especially through industry partnerships, where they can collectively try to address some of these challenges, use their pooled resources, work with community colleges, which are often very good partners in this work, especially as they bring employers together to solve a common problem is critical. And we invite anybody in the audience to reach out to the National Fund because we are very proud of the work that we do in the 34 communities that we represent around this issue. Thank you, Kermit, for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. And to everybody out there, be sure to join us again next month for State of Our Workforce. And you can check at nationalfund.org for our upcoming broadcasts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amanda.